Thank you for tuning into the Embodied Mother podcast. I am your host, Jacquelyn Page. Join me as I share my stories of my own experiences of moving through the threshold of motherhood and the wisdom that I have developed along the way. It is my hope that this is a space where mothers will walk away feeling empowered to embrace and nurture themselves and to feel grounded in their role as mother. Together, let's build the skills that will help you step into your sovereignty as mother and be the light and the pillar for your family. I can't wait to journey together. Hello, and welcome to the Embodied Mother podcast. I'm your host, Jacquelyn Page, and what an honor it's been and a journey into season 4 of deepening our relationships. Because as I have deepened the relationship with knowing myself, I have been able to cultivate this podcast and shift it also to have it on video. And I know that if you listen to the last episode of Getting Closer to You with God, how that was a lot of layers that I had to deconstruct within myself to make that possible. And so this episode is going to be all about getting to know thyself, getting to know those inner parts of you that are alive and well and showing up, and also getting to know those parts of you that may be a little hidden in the shadows that may be illuminated through your relationships with others, through your marriage or through parenting, and really getting to know them and getting curious about them and what they mean for you. And this episode is really a culmination of this whole podcast. I feel like the whole theme of the Embodied Mother podcast really is an inner journey to get to know yourself. And I really feel that throughout this podcast, this whole theme is really anchored into the seasons, because how can you show up fully as wife and mother if we don't truly know ourselves and getting clear on what that means? And I believe that we live in a culture that really shows us a way of disconnecting from our true self, of living a life that's very fast paced, that is very busy oriented, so that there isn't a lot of room to get quiet, to hear the whispers within ourselves. And for me personally, that took some intentional deconstruction to begin to live a life that feels more intentional and that feels more aligned with who I am. And knowing that I'm living a life innately connected to who I am took a process of really getting to know myself. And in that process of getting to know myself, it has really unfolded the intentionality of how we are now living as one, a marriage and in our family unit. And I would say this process for me really did start in motherhood. I began to get curious and question the things that I was habitually doing instead of mindlessly doing habits or ways of being or parenting. I began to get curious and question the why behind it. And when I began to question the why behind I was doing certain things, certain traditions or activities, or the way I was parenting, it began to illuminate belief systems that I was holding within myself that was really curating the life around me. And I was recognizing, and I know that I've mentioned this many times throughout the podcast, that I was living a very disconnected life from my innate divine self, my truest sovereign woman. And it it was a life that I felt very connected to at the time because I thought that that is where I was meant to be. But what I realized was I was sick often. I was living in a space where I was very reactive. I was reacting to life rather than embracing and just nurturing life. And even for me, that we're nurturing. it didn't feel very innate within me as I became a mother. Yes, there was parts of me that I am designed with as a woman that bloomed when I became a mother. And also there were parts of me that were disconnecting me from living a life that I wanted to live. I wanted to live a life that felt easeful and peaceful and having vitality and patience and compassion and nurturing. And while that was in my heart, I wasn't living that out in my day to day. And so I began to, like I mentioned, getting curious about the why behind what I was doing. I began to take ownership of this life that I cultivated and began to get clear on how I wanted to live and show up each day and where I wanted to show up as a family unit and how I wanted us to feel in the everyday, in the in the mundane. I want to find beauty even in the mundane. And throughout this process, I can say that is the life that I have been able to cultivate. And I believe that it can feel foreign. That is a good word for it. It can feel foreign if we do not have a rhythm within our day for quiet self-reflection. It can feel uncomfortable to sit with ourselves, to have self-responsibility in that way, and to get curious without shaming ourselves. And one thing that I have recognized as that forgiveness is a beautiful practice to have when getting to know thyself. Forgiveness for yourself and maybe choices or actions that you have participated in, forgiving others around you, maybe even forgiving your parents for certain things that happened in your life. And you may have had the most beautiful upbringing. I'm so privileged in the way that I was raised. And also, I have begun to accept that there were things within my childhood or my experiences that um, have had hindering effects that needed to be forgiven and to be healed because we're all doing the best that we can. And every day, that is what I remind myself that I'm doing the best that I can. And I can also choose to show up every day as wanting to be the best version of myself and to intentionally choose actions and choices that align with the integrity of showing up as the best version of myself. And for me, um, I won't go into the whole deep dive because I feel like there's elements of my story of becoming a mother and what that has looked like throughout the seasons of this podcast. But for me personally, I have recognized that the winter season is such a mirror for what my body and my mind and my spirit, because we're all like connected with the nature around us. We are all from the one that I was recognizing that, oh, when it gets dark outside, I am wanting to get dark. I am wanting to go get quiet and go within. And so for me, a ritual has been to completely get off social media for, it started off as just December, but it really has just turned into December and January. It has felt like a very grounding practice for me to quiet the outside noise, to really get quiet and hear and sit with myself and be with myself in ways that I don't throughout the other seasons. Spring, you begin to come alive, and summer, I feel like that is when our lives are more um a little more busy. There's a lot of more activities. The sun is out longer, and so naturally we're drawn to going to the river, pools, hanging out with friends more. And I've noticed that when I honor the seasons that my body is mirroring with the outside world, I have begun to feel more grounded in those seasons, especially when we're moving into winter. Winter comes right when there's like this holiday season. And so it can feel contrasting what my body's wanting to do, yet what everyone is choosing to do. And it has been a really great practice for me because the past 2 years have have illuminated, and I feel truly like they were transformational and pivotal moments for me to get quiet and see things within myself. There was a lot of shadows that came to be seen and honored and recognized so that I am not living my life, my year ahead, still stuck with those shadows that are creating my reality. Because truly, I believe that we are, and there's so much science now to actually validate this, um, this very innate way of being is that we create our reality not from our conscious mind, but from our subconscious mind. And in our subconscious mind or our subconscious being is where our shadows live. All of those pains and hurts or limiting beliefs or just the negative self-talk, where all that comes from is our subconscious being. And I believe, and what I have continuously found in research is that we operate mostly from our subconscious, this reactive, innate part within ourselves that we are not even aware of. And so that can feel a little, I don't know, mind blown when we think about it, how we are not actually cognitively making our realities. It's really a mirror of our subconscious. And for me, when I began to connect with that idea, first it lived in my head and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. And then I embodied it and I began to really take ownership of what is around me, what the messages are showing up for me in my marriage and in parenting and in my relationships around me. When I begin to feel like life feels a little hard and sticky, I pause and I get curious about why that is. Because if I am cultivating my reality, there's something within me that is creating this scenario to happen. And before really embodying all of this, there was elements that I participated in out in my external world that helped me feel myself in ways that I didn't realize I was needing to feel. And maybe that played out in drama or just creating scenarios that maybe has a little more tension. And I have begun to recognize how, oh, I am the common denominator for all of these things. So, how can I take responsibility? How can I get clear on my needs? How can I get clear on other people's needs so that we communicate in a way, or I show up in a way rather, that is from a space of sovereignty so that isn't evoking um, the drama from other people to come into my space. And that has been an unraveling for sure. That has been getting clearer within myself on the values that I'm going to hold myself to, that I'm going to hold our family to, and making choices and decisions that align with those values. And so beginning to be okay with saying no to things that don't align with those and bringing in more the things that do align with it or cultivating our way of being that is in more alignment with how how I want to feel in the day to day. And I have recognized that really I was living my life in a space of I wasn't anchored to a foundation. Yes, my belief in God, and I shared about that in the last episode, has had its journey of ebbing and flowing, but there was always this element of a higher power, that we have a creator and that there is this higher power that really connects all of us and the love space of our heart of all of us. And I lost my train of thought. I lost it. Maybe it'll come back to me. Yes, that's what it was. That I wasn't anchored into a foundation for myself. So when I was making choices or decisions, it came from what I was feeling in that moment. And yes, sometimes that can be very accurate, and other times it may not be the most accurate thing for me to make a split decision in that moment. And so as a family, well, first, before we started the family, because really I have recognized that the way my relationships are is my connection with God, which really helps illuminate my connection with myself, and then marriage, and then family. So I began to get clear on how I wanted to feel. For me, as a woman, I'm a very feeling being. And when I began to get clear on how I want to feel in my day to day, and then begin to experiment with orienting habits or rituals in my day that helped align and helped me feel that way, or I would have a really great day where I felt so uplifted and energized. And I'm like, hold on, what did I do? And let me repeat this on repeat. How to cultivate this kind of vitality that I want to embody in my everyday. And so it began to become like a fun experiment of what do I need? What kind of spiritual nourishment do I need? What kind of emotional nourishment do I need? What kind of creative nourishment do I need? What kind of physical nourishment do I need for me to feel my best self? And I began to take responsibility of filling my own bucket. And I began to let go of the expectation and the assumption that that should come from outside things, that my bucket only gets filled through my marriage, or my bucket only gets filled through my friendships, or my bucket only gets filled through parenting, which really all of those can be very fulfilling things. And also, I know that my fulfillment and my just my gratitude for myself and my day comes from within. And when I'm in that space of gratitude, when I'm grounded with my faith in my God, and when I am just in a space where I know how to meet my own needs, then I am in that space where I am overflowing, and then I can give to others from this overfloweth state. And I have seen the bounty of that through my marriage, because when I stopped blaming my husband, when I stopped nagging at him and stopped criticizing him, because really all of that was a mirror with how I was feeling within myself. Those were all self-criticisms, or maybe lack of beliefs within myself, or defeating beliefs that I was carrying, that I was projecting out. When I began to feel fulfilled within myself, that mirrored into my relationships, not just my marriage, not just our family unit, but even how I'm showing up in relationships around me, and the type of relationships that I've been able to cultivate that feel very intimate and nourishing when we get together. It feels, it's not a drain, you know? I don't know if you've ever hung out with someone or had an experience where it felt very draining afterwards. And so I began to notice when that happens for me, and I began to place a loving boundary of not allowing myself to participate in experiences that were going to be a total drain on my system. Because when I'm drained, or I'm just feeling really bogged down, then I am not able to fully show up in my marriage, or in parenting, or in homeschooling, or even with others the way that I'm wanting to. I'm not able to serve others if I'm not serving myself. And so really, this journey of knowing thyself comes with getting quiet. And for me, there's definitely seasons of when that needs to be more and when that needs to be less. I've noticed in the wintertime, that quiet time within myself, I yearn it and I desire it to be longer, deeper spaces. Whereas in the summertime, I might not need that much. I might not need a full hour in a day. I might be good with a 15-minute reset, and that feels very fulfilling for me. But the thing is that's my experience. That's me getting to know myself, of how much time I need self-journaling, or my time in prayer with God, or in meditation, or taking deep breaths, or even just connecting with the land around me. I have begun to strengthen and do more of the things that feel fulfilling for me and that give me that vitality. It is sometimes more time in nature. It's sometimes moving my body more, or maybe bringing my band to the river and doing a workout at the at the river. It's it's a very unique it's a very unique equation for all of us to know that the elements of what we need to fully feel our best selves. And if you are very new to this podcast, I would really recommend even going back to in the first season, 6 tangible ways to help heal your nervous system, because I believe that, and I recognize that I was also in this, that I was in a state of fight or flight. And in that survival state, I wasn't able to thrive. And some of these concepts felt very airy to me. I was not grounded in myself. And that was because I was just living in a space that was flighty. And that is how I was showing up in my reactions. And so, really working on grounding my nervous system, knowing what that looks like for me, has helped me have a more stable baseline so that I can grow in the ways that I want to, so that I can thrive in the ways that I want to, and so that I can connect to these big goals that I have for myself and for our family. Those require energy. And what I was noticing was I have these ideas and these sparks and this creative force within me, and I would bring it out into the world, and then I didn't have the energy to sustain it. And I recognized that. And so it's getting clear on having to pull back on those things and pull back on other things that may have been requiring a lot of energy of me, and take time to get to know myself and what I need so that I can show up. Because when I am in a space where I just feel so bogged down that even showing up in marriage and motherhood can feel hard, it can feel sticky. And I honor and acknowledge that there may be seasons of life where that is more prominent. Maybe there's external circumstances happening and we're doing the best that we can. And also, I've noticed that I have had more capacity and higher thresholds to hold circumstances and crises in a much different lens and light, and a more grounded and stable when I have a more grounded and stable foundation, I'm able to hold life's stressors differently and able to move through them with ease. And I want that for other mothers. I want that for other people, but especially mothers, because I know that we live in a world that teaches us that we should be selfless all the time, to give and give and give and not give to ourselves. And truly, I believe the most loving thing that we can do as mothers and as wives is to pour into ourselves, because when we pour into ourselves, we're showing up, we're showing our own self that we have our own back, that we can support ourselves, that we can serve ourselves before serving others. And when we do that, we have more capacity for the needs of our family, for the needs of daily life. And I believe that that is the most loving thing that we can do, is to serve ourselves and to do it in a way that is unapologetic for taking care of ourselves. I know that as I've deepened with learning my body, learning myself, learning my needs, the threshold for what I've been bringing in requires more energy. And so that requires more time outside. That requires more orienting more of our lives in a slower pace so that I have the capacity for these things. You know, I was asked how I have the ability to do all the things that I do, to home cook all of our meals, to homeschool, to show up and do make this podcast and pour into the skincare business that I have started. And really, I believe that one, a lot of these things do fill me up and they do give me energy. And two, I've gotten really good at understanding myself in the way to understand what I need to have the energy to hold all these things. And it becomes like a fun game. It becomes a fun game to go to the river the first thing in the morning and see how we feel the rest of our day versus waiting till the end of the day to go to the river. Or what does it look like if we cultivate more meals outside? What does it look like if I move my body first thing in the morning? What does it feel like when homeschool shifts to be more dynamic of our family's new way of being? What does it feel like after letting go of things that no longer serve us? And I began to feel lighter, but more grounded in who I am and knowing who I am and getting clear on my needs. And because of that, I'm able to express my needs and my desires in a way that my husband can hear clearly, that I can be clear on how I can be supported because I know what I need. And that has really helped show for me to show up in marriage and in parenting in a way that feels aligned, that feels good, that feels integrous. Yes, I'm human and I have my moments, and I know how to repair those moments when I'm human and maybe react in a way that doesn't feel in alignment with integrity. And so I say that because it's a journey. And in that journey of knowing yourself, I truly believe that as you get to know yourself deeper, your life will begin to deepen in that way, which is the whole season theme of this podcast. And it's funny because as I was sharing about my winter portal where I go inwards and get off social media, I used to really dread winter. I used to like avoid the cold, the uncomfortable. I used to just not look forward to the winter, the cold at all. And this season of winter has been so freeing to embrace the uncomfortable, to dive into the cold, to not uh, shy away from it, to not fear it, but to embrace it. And it has been the most invigorating experience to feel so enlivened by the cold. My favorite way to work out now is when it's cold outside. There is just this level of invigoration and energizing momentum that I feel after a workout in the winter versus a workout in the summer. And so it felt easeful for me to begin to go into winter. And I noticed the past 2 years, it has almost felt harder for me to transition from winter to spring than from fall to winter because I've gotten really good at letting go and shedding and getting quiet and knowing myself. And it has been the stepping out of winter to spring for me to fully take all of that integration and not share every piece with the world, but to share myself with the world. And that has felt a little more uncomfortable for me. I noticed that I stopped getting my face on social media. And so, yes, this podcast of me being on here was very confronting and moving through some limiting beliefs. And I think that this feels like this I don't know, coming out. I feel so different. I feel so more aligned with knowing myself, and I'm learning to embrace this spring more, to bloom and allow myself to blossom out into the world. And that is, that feels fun for me. And I know that's innately within me is of my design of researching, but also getting to know myself and to experiment with life. Life just feels like a big experiment with my evolutions of who I am. And I can fully say that as I dove into each one of those, I did it full-heartedly and I gained experience and I gained wisdom about myself to take with me to integrate for the rest of my life. But I don't truly believe we're fully living this life if we don't really know ourselves, if we don't really get to know ourselves. We got to know ourselves more than we know other people. And I think that when we get to know ourselves better, we can respond differently to moments that feel activating, that feel triggering, and we can begin to have more compassion for others and for ourselves, and to just live in a more lighthearted way, and to enjoy and have fun with this life. So I don't know. I feel like this was a little short and sweet because this whole podcast is about getting to know yourself. But I couldn't go into deepening relationships without just solely talking about deepening the relationship within ourselves. Because that is where the fruit of all of the other relationships are going to be anchored into. The openness of my own love for myself is going to be the parameter of how I can fully show up and love others. And yes, I can love others deeply if I'm still working on loving myself. And also, there's just a level of intimacy that has unveiled itself as I've gotten to know myself more intimately, know my patterns, know my habits, and getting curious about them. And there's just this level of, I don't know, lightheartedness that comes when I'm interacting with others and there's a moment of tension or activation. I don't feel so bogged down by those moments. I feel confident to be able to anchor into the truth of who I am in those moments and to allow the love to unfold. And so, yeah. How are you getting to know yourself? What is your practice of getting quiet within yourself? Do you feel like you are rushing through your whole day that you don't even have a moment of breath? Because that'll be felt within your home. If you are rush, 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 because I used to live that way, and there's moments where if I have to be somewhere at a certain time, I feel that and I'm like, oh, that's a choice. I can slow down because my children are going to feel that rush, that tension, that angst, and I don't want to be embodying that. I want to be embodying fluid. I want to be embodying flexibility and peace and fun. So, this was an important conversation to have with ourselves before we go into talking about marriage and family dynamics and deepening what those can look like. And so, I have some fun guests lined up for this season to deepen relationships with. And so, I will see you in the next episode. I'm sending you with much love and blessings.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. It has truly been an honor to walk alongside you and share my journey of motherhood with you. If you feel connected with this episode, I would just so love if you could leave a rating and a review. This really helps the podcast grow so that it can reach other mothers and women along this journey. And I always love hearing your takeaways and your interactions with this podcast. So if you ever feel called to share on Instagram and social media, be sure to tag me at the.embodied.mother so I can connect with you and your takeaways from this podcast. Until next time, I'm sending you with so much love and blessings on your journey in this life.